Welcome, 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 Be Health Empowered family. Thank you so much for joining us for another week of Excuse Me, Doctor. My name is Dr. Melissa Clarke. Please call me Dr. Mel. I am your host for Excuse Me, Doctor, and I'm delighted to be back here with you this week. We're doing what we do every week right here at Excuse Me Doctor. We're making sure that you have the information that you need to make wise health decisions. And of course, we're streaming on YouTube and Facebook, taking questions live. If you're newbies to the show, as I always ask you, please hit that subscribe button if you're checking us out on YouTube. And if you're checking us out on Facebook, hit that like. I really appreciate you for it. And remember, put those questions in the chat because that is why we are here to empower you with all the information you need and get your questions answered. So let's get into creating another amazing week for ourselves with all the health topics we're going to cover today. And you know who I need to help me do that, right? Please come on in to the studio. Mr. Wayne Bruce and Miss Lila Mays, my co-producers extraordinaire. How y'all doing?
Hey,
Hey, Dr.
good.
Mel, what's going
Good.
on?
How you doing, Dr. Mel?
What's happening?
You know,
Lie. What's up? I'm digging the color
Hey,
palette. I'm digging the
yeah,
whole
thank
palette.
you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank
you
you.
matching your
yeah.
background there, all
Just
everything.
just trying to keep it real. Glad that y'all are here with me, bringing from the word from the street, telling us what's on everybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Indeed.
Anytime. So you know what we come here to do. We come here to get
Well,
into
hang on,
the
Wayne.
what?
Hang on, Wayne. Hang on 1 second. What we talking about this week, Dr.
Oh,
Mel?
I forgot to even
Well,
ask.
thank you, Lila. I mean, at least somebody is, tuned into it. We have a fantastic show tonight because, with this pandemic, it seems like it's just sucked all the air out of the room when we talk about other conditions. But we know that's
Yeah,
not been the case. Stuff has still been
yeah.
happening. And so tonight, we're going to focus on one of those issues, and that's sexual health and HIV prevention. We have an
Mm-hmm.
incredible discussion lined up. We're going to hit all those issues regarding sexual health, advances in preventing and treating HIV for Black men, Black women, everybody really,
Okay.
because everybody's at risk. So we're gonna hit it all tonight.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
All
well,
right.
if that's the show, I'm down. And so look, let's get into the recap.
All right, let's
Okay.
do it. So, we're starting off with the numbers, and it is a particularly grim number tonight. Worldwide, we've hit 6 million deaths from COVID, y'all. 6
Ooh.
million. And,
Whew.
even though the official number here in the United States is 960,000, the CDC estimates that that's like 30% or 32% less than what it really is because of
Really?
underreporting, which
Mhm.
means that we're probably over 1 million here in the United States alone.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah. And we're only 4% of the world's population, but we have over 15% of the deaths. It's
I
ridiculous.
mean, it's just ridiculous. It's
How did
it's
we
so
get here?
crazy.
You want to ask yourself, how did we
Oh,
get here?
that
Yeah.
is
How did we
just
get
that
here?
is very, very sobering, Dr. Mel.
It is, but the good news is that cases are continuing to come down. We're down
Mhm.
to like 45,000 cases a day, which still sounds kind of crazy to say 45,000
Yeah.
cases a day we're down to, but we are. Hospitalizations are down, deaths are down. We're still hovering around 1,300 deaths a day, still a grim number in and of itself. But overall, transmission is down. We, of course, know a lot of the communities that are taking away mask mandates, right? I know out there
Yep.
in LA, isn't that the case? Right? Right, Lala?
Not for me in my house, but yes. Mhm.
Right. And as I keep telling everybody, check your community transmission rates before you decide whether you're going to take your mask
Yep.
down. And don't do it if you have a weakened immune system. Um, so yeah, we all need to stay vigilant. Keep our ears tuned out just in case there's some
Mhm.
emerging variant that pops up. But for right now, you can just go by your community transmission to decide whether you're going to take your mask down.
Okay.
All right. How we looking on Vax Facts, Dr. Mel?
Not bad. We're almost at 70% of everybody over 5 has had at least 2 vaccinations, which is good.
Okay. Yeah.
And the CDC updated it for those people out there who have only had 1 shot or, are thinking about going ahead and making that move and getting vaccinated. If you're over 12 and you're getting your first vaccine dose, you can space it out. It's actually recommended that you space it out to 8 weeks between doses
Okay.
of Pfizer and Moderna. So not the 3 weeks for Pfizer or the 4 weeks of Moderna. Now, the exceptions, the folks that should stick with that 3 to 4 week between doses are people who are over 65, people who are under 12, or people who have weakened immune systems. The booster guidance hasn't changed. That's still 5 months after your second dose to get your booster. So that hasn't changed.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Cool.
right.
All right. So am I reading this correctly? There is some COVID prevention treatment that folks are not taking advantage of? Is that
That is
happening?
correct. So there are over 7 million Americans who have weakened immune systems, right? And that's due to stuff like cancer, organ transplants, if they're being treated for autoimmune disease like lupus, sarcoid, rheumatoid arthritis, with drugs that lower your immune system. So those people, those 7 million people, are eligible for this antibody treatment called Evusheld. That it's a one dose regimen, and it gives your body antibodies. It
Wow.
gives it to those people who can't make antibodies, and those antibodies last a year. So
Wow.
the thing is, though, a lot of people who need it aren't getting it because they don't know about it. Their doctors don't know about it. Even some providers are still unclear. So if you have a condition or you take a medication that weakens your immune system, make sure you talk to your doctor about it. And if your doctor doesn't know, tell him or her to call a, academic hospital, because they'll know to get the real information about how you can get it for yourself. And then that way, if you get it, you don't have to, you can be confident taking off your mask and, moving about your life. Because a lot of people with weakened immune systems are still, in their house with the shades
Right.
drawn, with their mask on, because they're justifiably concerned about going out in public.
Wow.
Okay.
It's good to know. Well, Dr. Mill, I've been watching a lot of basketball. And in basketball, when somebody shoots a jump shot in your face and you don't raise your hand to block it, they say, hands down, man's down.
Okay.
So I want to apply that to the next thing. Man down. COVID
Okay.
is messing with your man,
The thing.
and you may not get up.
This is true. Yes, I guess that is a way to put it. So ED stands for erectile dysfunction. And they're seeing that men infected with the virus, with the COVID virus, are 3 to 6 times more likely to develop erectile dysfunction as an indicator of so-called, long COVID. That's one of the long COVID symptoms. And, we know that COVID attacks the blood vessels and the nerves. We know that. And we know that those play a critical role in getting an erection. But there was a recent animal study that came out that shows that the coronavirus infects not just the blood vessels and the nerves in one place, but actually in the prostate, in the penis, in the testicles, and all the surrounding blood vessels, which may explain why it has this link to erectile dysfunction. And we're seeing that 1 in 5 men with coronavirus have male genital tract problems after infection. So pretty stunning information there.
I mean, I just think that's, a real selling point to get vaccinated, but that just me.
Yeah. Yeah, because we know that vaccination cuts down on the risk of long COVID. And so that's one of the long COVID symptoms. Yeah.
Right. It now pays to do that. So look, we know everybody is feeling like COVID's ending, but we know better. But everybody's starting to hit the gym a lot, and people over the quarantine time have even put gyms in their house. So now we find out building muscle really has lifelong benefits.
And this is great news, right? Because it's showing this one study of like 36,000 people. I'm sorry. It was a review of all the literature of over 36 articles. So sorry about
Okay.
that.
Okay.
It shows that muscle building activities lower the risk of death from all causes. So heart disease, stroke, total cancer, and diabetes from death from those things. It lowers it by almost 20%. And the
Wow.
thing is, you only have to do 30 to 60 minutes a week of muscle strengthening activity. So that's like 10 minutes a day. And if you push yourself over 60 minutes, there's no additional benefit. So like, why bother unless you're just, one of those people that, want to look ripped all the time. And so putting it together with aerobic activity has even better news for longevity and reducing that risk of all cause deaths. So 10 minutes a day. That's what it boils down to.
Wow,
All right.
we take that.
Okay. So I'm gonna just say this, Dr. Mel. Next time, just at me, just call me and tell your girl about the wine studies. Okay. So this
Okay.
next one is this for me. A glass a day shrinks the brain away. So my brain is.
Yeah, I know this is not great news. This is not great news for a lot of people, and science is always learning more. So this was the study that was done with 36,000 people, right? And from this study, they see that even light drinking, so like a drink a day on average, can be dangerous for brain health. And it shows that if you go from just like a half a glass of wine and beer a day to a full glass of wine and beer a day, that is associated with aging the brain over, 2 years additional over time, right? So the bottom line is, don't assume that a drink a day is beneficial, especially if you're over 50 and you're really interested in maximizing your brain health and keeping your brain from aging. So
Okay.
not
So
great
what
news,
about
I know, for a lot of people.
The advertising has been seriously directed at us ladies, and I bought into it during this whole panorama.
So
Absolutely.
with men they advertise just get drunk on the weekends. So
And that's an interesting thing because they specifically said they did not study binge drinking in this.
right.
So it's what this study looked at was people that drink every day, the people that come home and have a nightcap every night, or a lot of people think that, oh, if I drink a glass of wine with dinner, it'll help me sleep. Those folks, right?
Even red wine. I thought red wine had some benefits.
Yeah, there is a chemical in red wine called resveratrol that is an antioxidant. So my guess is that it probably may even this out somewhat, but they didn't specifically, break it down in terms of kinds of liquors. It was kinds of alcohol. It was just the quantity of the alcohol.
Well, I'm gonna go with the antioxidant angle. That's what I'm gonna do.
But the
I'm
thing
kidding.
is, if you want that, you can eat grapes because it's the same thing. You can eat grapes. And they even sell it in the health food store. They have resveratrol in the health food store. So you don't have to go to the wine to get it. I'm just saying. Yeah, you got options.
All right.
You got options.
So you know what time it is, right?
What time is it, Wayne?
It's time for the
weekly debunk. Stopping misinformation in its tracks.
So this week, Tanya Twitter finger said, "I'm not worried about getting COVID. There's this new tea now that's tested and everything and cures COVID. I got some at the crib just in case."
Tanya, I don't know about that. Is that true, Dr. Mel?
Well, it is true that there is a tea made of aloe vera, honey, and herbs that's being marketed right now as a cure for COVID. And it costs $60 for a 16-ounce bottle. The Department of Justice, though, is taking civil action against the person who's the manufacturer based on the fact that
Oh,
they're
wow.
exploiting the COVID-19 pandemic with deceptive advertising and misinformation claiming that this tea is a cure, and because they have not done competent and reliable scientific studies, right? So the manufacturer is saying, well, look, I tested it on myself and 15 other people and it cured COVID. But this is the thing. Remember the vaccine? They tested it on over 80,000 people before the two RNA vaccines together, on over 80,000 people before, releasing it to the public. A study size of 15 is not enough because random chance could have accounted for the fact that those 15 people would have gotten better from COVID anyway, right? So that does not constitute a scientific study. And in addition, studies that have looked at this in a rigorous way have not shown that taking supplements like vitamin C or zinc or other vitamins actually cure COVID or even cut the duration of symptoms. So what I say is this: focus on liberally eating fresh produce. That gives you the minerals and vitamins that you need in your diet to make sure you have a robust immune system. But a robust immune system is not the same as immunity from COVID. We know that. We talk about this all the time. There are only two ways to create the antibodies that give you immunity to COVID. That's getting sick or getting vaccinated. Getting sick with COVID, even if you survive it, we've been talking about all the things that, long COVID, the erectile dysfunction, brain fog, shortness of breath, cough, fatigue, all the things that happen to at least 1 out of 5 people that get COVID for many months. That ain't the way to go. Not to mention, of course, all the death that we've seen. The safer alternative, get vaccinated and don't rely on teas that are unproven.
Okay.
All
And there
right.
you have it. Tanya, debunked again.
Well,
Debunked
and
again.
I am so glad that Tanya has this open channel of communication with us so that we can address her weekly concerns. So that's
Obviously she
fantastic.
uses an Android phone because her texts come in green.
Clearly. For all the Apple lovers out there. Well, thank you, Lila and Wayne. We're gonna see y'all in a little bit.
All right.
But we are going to move into our show for tonight. And remember, make sure you're putting all your questions in the chat because we're going to come to them very, very soon. Folks are still having sex, and that is fantastic. But with that, we still need to be talking about sexual health and preventing sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. HIV, of course, is transmitted predominantly from unprotected sexual intercourse and sharing needles. But there have been lots of advances made in terms of preventing and treating HIV that many people don't know about. So we're going to talk about those tonight. We're going to talk about the latest in HIV and sexually transmitted infection treatments, prevention, and advocacy to empower you when it comes to your sexual health. And to do that, we have this incredible guest, Dr. Donta Morrison. He is a LA-based community change agent focused on bridging gaps to improve the lives of marginalized individuals. He's the Associate Director of HIV Prevention Services at APLA Health, and he oversees several government-funded programs that provide HIV and sexually transmitted infection prevention strategies to those who are most at risk. He's also, get this, a licensed minister with the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship, and where he tries to improve the relationship between the Black church and those who've experienced faith-based sexual exclusion. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Morrison.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right into it.
Yeah.
What has happened in the prevention and treatment of HIV while we've all been preoccupied with COVID?
That's a great segue, to be honest. A lot has happened. There is still a lot of advancements that are occurring in the field of HIV education, prevention, treatment that is not getting the shine that it deserves because of this little thing called COVID-19. But it's
Right.
good to know that the work is still going forth and that research is still developing around how do we best not only treat HIV, but prevent it in the form of vaccines. And I know a lot of folks, when they hear the word vaccine, they were kind of triggered by the fact that how do we get a COVID vaccine so swiftly? But when it came to
Mhm.
HIV, we're 30 plus years in the game of trying to find a way to prevent it or eradicate it completely. But the work is still going forward. Every researcher didn't just drop what they was doing and focus on COVID. Those who were researching HIV vaccines and treatments, they were still hard in the paint to do what they can do to make sure
Mhm.
that we find something soon.
Yeah, and actually, the advances made from the research on COVID-19 vaccination is now going to be applied in the HIV space. So they're
Right.
looking at RNA vaccines to prevent, sorry, HIV as well. So one of the reasons I know that there wasn't a vaccination for HIV prior to a vaccination for COVID was because the world stopped to be able to focus on a COVID vaccine, whereas that same thing did not happen for HIV. But thank God the research has continued and we're going to be able to apply what we've learned from the pandemic. So tell us a little bit about what's happening with HIV prevention specifically.
So one of the biggest things happening with prevention right now is what we call TASP, treatment as prevention, and that falls under the auspices of making sure that people who are living with HIV get to undetectable status. So that means
Mhm.
taking their medication regularly and being in control of the virus within their system. So if anybody wants to just Google it, you can type in the letter U, the equal sign, and U, and that's undetectable equals untransmittable. So a person living with
Mhm.
HIV that is undetectable with their viral load cannot transmit HIV. So that is a prevention measure that people living with HIV can follow. When it comes to people who are HIV negative, of course, we have PrEP, or pre exposure prophylaxis. And that falls under the biomedical side of HIV prevention. Basically, what PrEP is a person who's HIV negative. They will take an antiretroviral or one of the medications that a person living with HIV takes, and they in turn develop a barrier, that would decrease their chances of seroconverting or contracting the virus.
When you say seroconverting, break that down in regular folks' language for me?
Right. Seroconverting basically means going from HIV negative to HIV positive. So anyone that
Okay.
is HIV negative, once they're exposed to the virus, they're at risk of seroconverting to HIV positive.
Got it, got it. So, in terms of who is eligible for this for PrEP, for the taking the medication before having intercourse? Who's, eligible for that?
And that's an excellent question because when PrEP was first introduced, a lot of communities they kind of framed it as being specific to gay men only, or even gay men who are promiscuous. They labeled it as this drug that was given to people who were high risk, who were working the street, for lack of a better way. But
Mhm.
anybody can access PrEP. I know right now PrEP mandates are for people that are 18 and over, and I don't have it for certain. I know one pill is specifically designed for men. Women cannot
Mhm.
access it. So there are two PrEP medications. One is Truvada and one is Descovy. And I can't remember which one is strictly for men because they're still researching
Mhm.
how it affects women. But
Okay.
PrEP can be taken by women, and women can access PrEP. And I think it's important for women to know that PrEP is an option for them to add to their safer sex toolkit because most women don't even know that PrEP is available, or they feel that they don't fall within the demographic that PrEP was designed for.
Mhm. Now we're still with sort of the basics too, right? Condoms, um,
Yeah, but
the non-oral pill prevention strategies. Can you hit some of those for me? Just, to level set.
Right, right. Of course, just to balance it all out, we still push condoms. But you know, it's so tricky with condoms because believe it or not, a lot of people do not like using condoms. They just don't like using them. So they'll rather forego a condom and just take their chances. You know, we of course we always have the abstinence conversation. You know, but one that I think is so important when it comes to HIV prevention is conversations. Ask your
Mhm.
partner. Ask your partner their sexual history. Ask your partner their HIV status. Ask your partner, are they on PrEP or have they ever heard of PrEP? I think when it comes down to sexual relationships and intimacy, it's such a stigma around asking these questions that can keep you
Mhm.
at from being exposed. You know, some
Yes.
people feel, well, I'm being too invasive if I ask a person what they've done sexually. I'm being too invasive if I ask their sexual history. Well, at what point do you ask a person what they have engaged in before you allow them to be with you? You know, and I
Right.
know it is
It's
complex.
an
And
invasive act.
right.
So
And
yeah.
a lot of women, they don't feel they're not comfortable, you know, asking a guy, have you ever thought about being with another man? You know, which is a fair question because it's
Mhm.
like if I'm going to give you my body, I need to know who all is going to be in this bedroom with us. You know, all of
Mhm.
your past partners, what's going on. And I tell men all the time, you should not be offended if a woman asks you that question. No, she's not assuming that you're gay. No, she's not assuming that you're on the DL. She's just asking about your sexual history, not as a form of judgment, but as a form of protecting herself as well. And women should
Exactly.
not be offended when a man asks that question. And men,
Conversation about your HIV status in terms of protecting you against HIV, but there's still a lot of other sexually transmitted infections out there, right? Like
yeah,
warts
yeah,
and chlamydia and gonorrhea, syphilis,
right, right. There's
herpes,
actually 20, there's
right? All
27.
yeah, exactly. All reasons to wear condoms and to advocate for the use of condoms. So didn't want to
But
leave
I
those out
think
the
that
conversation.
yeah, I think the reason that those are not highlighted as much is because they're treatable or curable. You know, when
Mhm.
folks know that something can be cured, they don't have the same hesitancy. You know, it's like, well, if I
Right.
catch chlamydia, syphilis, gonorrhea, I'll get a shot, I'll take a pill. But if I catch HIV or herpes, oh my goodness, those are
Yeah.
viruses. Viruses cannot be cured. You know, so it's people there, it's what they're willing to deal with. You know, it's
Yeah.
what they're willing to sacrifice themselves to put themselves at risk for contracting.
Yeah. Now, pre-pandemic, we were hearing that Black women were one of the fastest growing groups at risk for HIV. Why is that? And is that still the case?
A lot of it has to do with just the lack of comprehensive conversations around sexuality. You know, Black women, like I love how you said sexually empowered. You know, oftentimes we don't raise up our young girls, you know, to be in control, you know, of their sexuality, to
Mhm.
have a voice in the bedroom, to have a voice in the dating part of it, the courtship. We don't do that. So, what I have come across oftentimes when I'm talking to a room full of Black women, like I said, they don't feel comfortable asking those questions. So they put themselves in harm's way and at risk for HIV infection. And then they end up sadly contracting the virus. After they contract the virus, sadly again, is that Black women don't have the support and the resources that Black gay men have. You know, or just the gay
Mhm.
community in general when it comes to HIV education. How do I live with this virus? What do I do next? You know, how do I navigate the healthcare system as an HIV positive woman? You know, the gay community has endless resources when it comes to learning about HIV, dealing with infection, how to navigate the mental side of it all. Black women specifically don't have those same groups or those same outlets. So it's like they have to figure it out on their own, you know, which
Mhm.
is sad. And
Yeah.
the risk is elevated because they're not being taught how to be empowered and how to ask those questions. If a woman pulls a condom out of her purse, she's instantly shamed, but she's using
Mhm.
that condom because she does not want to contract HIV. So
Right.
instead of being empowered in the bedroom, she gives all that power over to the man and then literally just prays that he doesn't give her anything, or prays that he's
Mhm.
going to be faithful, or prays that he's not on the down low or bisexual. You know, just holding fast to the hope that this guy is not going to do her wrong.
Right. Or just not even thinking about it at all, just caught up in the moment or caught up in the emotions of being with the person and, it's just not on your mind. So, yeah,
Right.
I think that's really important point to make. And I was
And then
shocked, to hear what you just said about the fact that, here we are in Women's Health Month, and when it comes to something as fundamental and important as HIV protection, that the resources aren't out there for women as they are in the Black or in the gay community, period. I won't even say the Black gay
right.
community, in the gay community.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really surprising. Now, one of the things, and I should add that really seems like a place that's really ripe for advocacy
Hmm.
when we talk about women's health. Now you have some interesting research in your background. Sorry about that. Uh,
It's fine. I love that song.
yeah, me too. Me too. Just had the great time for it. So you have some really interesting research that you've done in your background. I believe when you were getting your PhD, where you looked at why men, you researched reasons about why men who had sex with men don't use condoms. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So pre doctorate level, I worked on a program. It was called the Male Study, and it was ran by Dr. Nina Harawa out of Charles U University and co-led by Dr. Cleo Monago, and it really studied the behaviors of African American men who had sex with men. So MSM is an acronym that we use oftentimes in the field of HIV and sexual health, because just because a person engages in same-sex behavior does not mean they identify as gay. So we say
Mhm.
men who have sex with men or men who sleep with men. So we research these guys to get a better understanding of why they engaged in certain behaviors as closeted, gay men. And some of
Mhm.
the stuff that I learned from working on that research was that a lot of the men did not want to admit to the fact that they had sex with other men. So they did things that were kind of, I don't want to say careless and reckless, but it's like if I'm going to go out cruising, and cruising is going out looking for sex, I'm not going to take condoms. I'm not going to, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get drunk, I'm going to get high and do all that kind of stuff. So I can, in the words of Jamie Foxx, blame it. I can blame it on the alcohol. So if I
Mhm.
engage in a same-sex interaction, I was drunk or I was high. I
Mhm.
didn't use a condom because I didn't bring a condom. Because if I bring a condom, that means I'm willingly knowing that I'm leaving my house to go out into the streets to find another man to have sex with. And I don't want to deal with that reality. I don't want to deal with the reality that I am engaging in gay behavior because I'm a
Mhm.
heterosexual man. And the word download, it just took on this whole, it just ran with it. The Black community ran with the DL, and men started being, Black men specifically, started being singled out for not only just engaging in sex, but sometimes they're close friendships.
Mm.
If two men were just friends and they were heterosexual, they were accused, oh, y'all must be on the down low because y'all too close. So it put this wedge, within the Black community that made it really uncomfortable, to just build connection and to build friendships, because we didn't want to be perceived as possibly being gay,
Mm.
possibly engaging in sex, or possibly cheating on our girlfriends or our wives with another man. So it caused this ripple effect in identity. And what I also saw was that the men were more comfortable, more comfortable having unprotected sex because they didn't have to admit to what they were doing. Did they feel
Mhm.
bad after? Some of them did. But what they would end up doing, sad to say, was they would engage in these behaviors with men on the down low and then go home to their wives and girlfriends and have sex to prove that they were not gay.
Mhm.
So that's when I mentioned, women not having the I don't want to say the power, but the foresight to ask these
Mm.
guys, what are you attracted to? What do you like? I'm
Yeah.
not going to judge you, but let me know what I'm dealing with. Give me room to make my own decision of how I want to navigate this relationship. You know,
Right.
moving on. Yeah, then I can go
Well,
moving on to my. Mhm.
I was just gonna interject that also that sort of dynamic that you're describing also relates to why Black women were the largest, increasing group in terms of contracting HIV, but we talked about the fact that you're a minister. What role are you seeing, or have you seen, that the stigma around men having sex with men and quote unquote gay behavior has on, the decision making process that men are having, and how we treat this in Black faith institutions?
Definitely. And that was my dissertation. So my dissertation was the impact of faith-based sexual exclusion upon the lives of Black men who have sex with men who identify as Christian. So I researched the role of the Black church within the Black community and the response of the Black church to Black gay identified men who were actively involved in the church, not just the ones who no longer went to church, but these are the gay men who go to traditional churches. How are they treated? How are they made to feel? How does the response from the church affect their relationships, whether it's with family, friends, or intimate partners? What happens? And what I discovered was that, the Black church is the hub of the Black community. And I don't care how anyone tries to negate it or say, no, it's not. The Black church is the core of the Black community. And how it treats its congregants plays a huge role in how those individuals exist. For Black gay men, of course, we hear the Sodom and Gomorrah. We hear you're going to hell for being gay. They hear these messages. What that does is it pushes them into a space of shame. And with that shame and those shame behaviors, it comes a lack of responsibility and accountability for who they are. So it's like, I want to be right in the eyes of God. So therefore, if I have these slip ups, I will slip up with the man. I'm going to repent after, but I'm going to have a wife and kids because I want to enter into the kingdom of God. Also, if I live in the truth of who I am and be honest about who I am, what is going to happen? What is going to happen to me in church? Will I be allowed to elevate in ministry? Will the church accept me? Or will I be outcast and alienated? So most will choose to be undercover. Most will choose to be holy inside the sanctuary, but outside of the church is engaging in all kind of secret behaviors, and undercover behaviors with like-minded Christian men, because you want to keep your circle close. So we all gonna go down together, or we all gonna protect each other. And it forces this system in the Black community of sexual suppression. And with that suppression, of course, Black women, they become the victims of these situations, because we're not encouraging honesty. We're not encouraging Black gay men or Black bisexual men to be honest and live in their truth. So because they want to be accepted by their heterosexual brother, or the one that we consider a man, they put on the facade. They put on the suit and tie, they get the wife, they have the kids. And then when they turn 55 or 60 or 70, they realize I've been killing myself my whole life, life. And then they get divorced after the kids are off to college, get divorced, and then go be who they are. And that narrative needs to be investigated, further studied, and then changed, because we're doing a lot of harm to these Black men. And that's why I ask people, before you judge a man that's on the down low or closeted, empathize with him as well. Find out why he has to be that way. Find out why he's choosing to not come out and live in full and live honest and live transparent. Find out why. Imagine what he must be going through mentally to seek acceptance from his family, who are homophobic, from the church, who is homophobic, from his close friends who may be homophobic. Imagine how he feels to sit in these spaces with heterosexual couples and his wife and hear them talk about gay relationships or gay parents, knowing that deep down inside, that's who he is. So there's a whole mental thing that ties into these behaviors. And that goes to the condom piece. So if I have been suppressing who I am all of these years, the one place I want to be free is in the bedroom. And a condom is a reminder that what I am doing may in fact infect me with something I cannot cure. I want to be free with this person. I want to just feel this person totally. A condom is a reminder of all the limitations that I have had to put upon myself my whole life. It's a whole lot to HIV prevention that we don't talk about, that we don't unpack, but it's important to do so.
Yeah, no, and you're making some excellent points. I also want to you mentioned the harm that it's doing to the black man. And also it's doing the harm to the Black woman because again, it disempowers her. It exposes her to things that she doesn't know or doesn't, is not aware that she's being exposed to. And so everybody sort of suffers as a result. But excellent points. I want to just quickly get in, if you've been exposed, if you've had unprotected sex and you think that you may have been exposed to HIV, what are your options? Is there anything that can be done right away?
Yeah, if you feel you've been exposed, you can get on PEP. That is post-exposure prophylaxis, and that is one of those biomedical prevention tools that can be in your Safer Sex Toolkit. And I always say your Safer Sex Toolkit. So that is your PrEP, your PEP, your condoms, your dental dams, your all that kind of stuff. But post-exposure prophylaxis basically is like the morning after pill. So if you've had an intimate encounter with someone, whether it's oral sex, anal sex, or vaginal sex, unprotected, and you find out that the person is HIV positive, and they may not be undetectable, and you're like, okay, I'm at risk. Don't panic. Don't panic. Don't fall on the floor. Don't lay prostrate. Start willing out to God. Call your clinic. Call your clinic and say, yo, I've been exposed. Can I get on PEP? Most emergency rooms will provide PEP. And PEP has been around for a long time. It was first introduced to medical workers, firemen, law enforcement officials. If they have been exposed, say they're breaking up a fight and they get pricked by a needle, or they come be exposed to someone's blood of a positive person, they will get on PEP. PEP is a regimen of HIV medications that you take over the course of 27 days, and it decreases your chance of seroconverting. Remember, seroconverting is going from HIV negative to HIV positive, okay? Sadly, PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis, is not in the mainstream media, and I wish it was. Right now, PrEP gets a lot of the push. If anybody has seen those commercials for Truvada for PrEP, PrEP up, step up, that gets a lot of attention. But PEP, to me, is hugely important in the fight against HIV, because if we can get people who were exposed to get on PEP within 72 hours and decrease their chance of seroconverting, we will definitely lower the rate of new infection. There are a lot of people who find out they have HIV, and had they known about PEP, they would have did what they could do after the condom broke. Or after the person called them the next day and say, oh, I forgot to mention I have HIV. They could have did that. But instead, because they don't know about it, they sit back, or they'll and wait for the window period to get an HIV test, and then run and get a test and find out they're living with HIV.
And I would also add another category of people in there, people who are raped or who have non-consensual intercourse, right? Date rape.
Yes.
Those individuals, and not that there's really a difference between the two categories, but just to keep in mind that those individuals too are eligible or should consider getting PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis.
Agreed.
So listen, it is time for us to get some questions from the audience, and I just have a feeling that there are a lot of them percolating. So Wayne and Lila, can you come on back in and join us? And
bring us on in here. Bring us on in here.
What's it looking like out in those internet?
I'm gonna say this.
You muted
I'm
yourself,
jumping in,
Lila.
Wayne, because honestly, there aren't a whole lot of questions. Huh?
No, you're on.
There aren't a whole lot of questions. So I want to say this is a very nuanced conversation. It's very interesting. It sort of puts people in a weird space. And this is one of those conversations, Dr. Mel and Dante, where people are like, it's the ostrich effect, right? I don't really want to talk about this. I don't want to face it. I'm not going to ask a question, and I'm going to dip out. But that's okay, because I got all the questions. So while Wayne curates the other questions from
Lila,
blackdoctors.org.
Also, Lila, you got to think, if people ask questions here, what will they think of me? Because I have a question. Yeah. So people sometimes
that's what I'm saying. It's all of that. It's yes. Okay. So I have questions. So Dr. Morrison, first of all, I would love to just publicly acknowledge you for the work that you have done. I first saw you on a panel at Dwight Radcliffe's church, and I was just so blown away that the church people were having this conversation with Bishop Flunder and everybody else who was on the panel. It's a conversation that is so necessary for same gender loving people and the down low folks. I think you made some amazing points. So my first question is, can you just break down for us what APLA stands for?
Yeah, APLA is AIDS Project Los Angeles. So we are the, I think we're the second largest HIV/AIDS service organization in the state of California.
Yes.
Yeah.
My second question is, do you do like a sexual maturity workshop or something? Because I think the maturity around having conversations about sexuality is where a lot of people need education. So you did mention that when you're in these rooms with women, you're talking to them about asking questions. What are those sessions look like, Donta? Where are they? How do we get to them?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, I do them. If I'm called, I do them. I've been doing this work for almost 20 years. Just for transparency, I was diagnosed in 1999. And the reason I got into this field is because when I was diagnosed, I didn't know where to go because I thought that HIV didn't hit the Black community. I just know about Magic Johnson and Eazy-E. I mean, literally. And I'm like, well, this is a white folks thing. What are you talking about? I have HIV. And then when I start going to support groups, I found myself being the only Black person in the room. And as someone who grew up in the church and hearing everything about sex that came from the pulpit, sex is wrong, sex is dirty, sex is this, sex is that. I'm like, yeah, but that's not fair to the kids. I'm like, kids, the Bible says my people perish for lack of knowledge. And we need to at least give people the tools they need to make the best decision for themselves. You know, everybody is not going to follow the golden rule. You know, some folks are going to go astray. And if they happen to go astray, they can't go astray ignorant. You know, so my thing is about increasing knowledge. And when it comes to having these conversations with women, I have asked women this question too. I said, ladies, I'm talking to you about asking questions and getting the guy to open up. I said, so if the guy opens up and says, hey, yes, thank you for asking. I am bisexual, but I'm also monogamous. I do not believe in cheating. I'm 100% faithful. 98% of the women said, no, I will not date him. They will not date him. They will not date him. But I'm like, but ladies, so you would date Tyrone, who gonna run up your credit, you know, crash your car, you know, Jody from Baby Boy.
And sleep with men on the down low.
Yeah. So it was like, it's just the thoughts of their husband or boyfriend, fiance, what have you, being attracted to another man because they like, well, I can't compete with another man. I'm like, but we're talking about relationship and monogamy, and he's going to be exclusively yours. You know, so what do you really want from these guys? What kind of relationship do you want? And these questions are never really ironed out. It's always, we know women want to be made to feel safe and to know that their man is there. But what if he is not 100% hetero, but he ain't going nowhere? You know, so then it causes the guy to kind of push back and say, well, I can't tell her everything that I like in the bedroom. What if your guy likes certain kind of things in the bedroom? You know, I don't know how far I can go, but what if he likes certain things in the bedroom and he's
it's
like,
the internet. We can be frank.
Okay. Because I talk about the P spot. You know, women have the G spot, men have the P spot, which is their prostate. And most men, they love prostate stimulation. It enhances the orgasm. So if I ask women, yo, if your husband says, I like my prostate played with or triggered, would that turn you off? Yeah, that means he's gay. Wow. How did that mean he's gay? He wants you to stimulate his prostate, not your brother. You know, and I think because we don't talk about, you know, the nuances of human sexuality and how fluid and how beautiful sex is, it's a lot of frigid relationships and a lot of unsatisfied partners because they box themselves in. And these are heterosexual partners. They box themselves in because of the stigma and shame that's put on any kind of thinking that's outside the box.
But you know,
Great
as you're
point.
talking, it's like, we have financial literacy, we have health
Mhm,
literacy classes,
mhm,
sexual
mhm.
literacy is really something that's important. Just like you're saying,
Mhm.
sexual
It's
maturity, both for women and for men. Because if you have a sexually mature woman who tries to have this conversation with a sexually immature man, or vice versa, it's not going to work. So both
it's
parties
not gonna work.
really need to benefit from sexual maturity lessons and understanding that full spectrum of sexuality. What else you
And it's
got,
really
Lara?
funny you
I
said
ho-
that. I'm sorry, because I was just gonna say real quick, because when I do talks with kids, our junior high, middle school kids, I say exactly what you just said, Dr. Mel. We gotta be mature in
Mhm,
these conversations. And I tell the kids,
Mhm.
if you are still giggling at the idea of penis and vagina and all that, you ain't ready
mhm,
for sex. And we have a
Right.
lot of adults that still giggle and are uncomfortable talking about genitalia and they get
Mhm.
squeamish. I'm like, but how do it's a body part, so it's
mhm.
it's not really the age, it's the mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
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 And I'm sorry, Wayne, I think you probably have some questions,
I
right?
do. It is actually a few questions, not many, but it comes
Uh-huh.
from one of our great viewers, Yvonne. Does undetectable mean you cannot spread the disease?
Great question,
Yes.
Yvonne.
Yes, Yvonne. So undetectable means that you cannot transmit HIV. So basically, what they do is when you get your labs done, they measure the amount of virus that is in your blood. If you're not undetectable, that means you have enough virus in your blood to infect someone else.
Hmm.
People who are HIV positive, we take our medications every single day to control the virus in our system. When we reach undetectable status, we
Hmm.
can no longer transmit HIV. They
Mhm,
really started pushing that with women that want to have children. If a mother is
mhm,
is with child, they're like, stay on your medications so that you can decrease the rate of exposure for your child during childbirth, because that's when the child is exposed through the birth canal, because that's where all the blood and everything is. So undetectable plays a huge part, and for men that want to have a child, get to undetectable, so when you get her pregnant, you're not exposing her to HIV, the baby to HIV. So undetectable
mhm.
is the key to lowering the rate of transmission.
Fantastic.
And
Okay.
it's achievable. That's the key.
Right.
HIV, when I went to medical school in San Francisco, prior to all these advances, HIV was a death sentence. Now it's
Yeah.
Mhm.
something that people can live with and have a full and rich life.
Right.
I
Hmm.
mean, Dante is a living witness. Can you,
Yeah.
Dr. Mel and Dante, just really quickly give us for the people in the back the breakdown of PrEP versus PEP, right quick?
Sure. PrEP is
Again.
pre-exposure. Yeah, PrEP
Mhm.
is pre-exposure prophylaxis. So before you're exposed, you want to be preventative. So pre-exposure. So that's the pill you take every single day. When you think about PrEP, think about birth control. It's the same thing. Women who don't
Right.
want to get pregnant will take birth control. People who don't want to contract HIV will get on PrEP. PEP is post exposure prophylaxis. So that is post exposure, post being in a situation where the condom broke, someone told you the next day that they had it, post exposure. So that's the morning after pill, things of that nature. So PrEP is pre, PEP is post. And PEP, you only take it for 27 days. So it's just a regimen you take for 27 days to make sure that
Mhm.
you're okay. But PrEP you
And you
take
can
it
talk
for as long as you feel you need.
Yep, and you can talk to your doctor, your clinic about getting either one, and
Mhm.
for PEP, for the post-exposure prophylaxis, if it's a situation like I mentioned with rape, non-consensual sex, you can get it in the emergency department.
And also, let me
Okay.
add for PrEP. PrEP is good for serodiscordant couples. So a serodiscordant couple means one partner is living with HIV, one partner is
Mhm.
HIV negative. So because
Mhm.
everyone cannot get to undetectable. Some people, they just will not get to undetectable status no matter how hard they try. Those persons, if they're in a relationship, they're married or whatnot, their partner can be on PrEP, and the past person is taking their medications, that greatly decreases the risk of infection in the bedroom. So for serodiscordant couples, PrEP is ideal. And
Great
these are
point.
things that make
Great.
These are things that make conversations healthier if you're out on a dating someone or whatever, getting to know them, and the person says, well, I just want to let you know I have HIV. And instead of going into flight mode and running, you can ask, well, are you undetectable? Well, well, okay, well, I can get on PrEP, because I love you. I like everything about you. Your status is irrelevant. I'll get on PrEP and we'll be fine.
Excellent points.
Great.
And I also want to
Wayne?
add, and Dr. Mill, just real quick, and Dr. Mill, you can attest to this, that women need to request an HIV test. A lot of women don't know that. When they go in to get, their checkup and whatnot, they'll get the whole STD panel, but HIV is not included in that STD panel. You have to ask for an HIV test. And since this is Women's Health Month, I want to make sure that my sisters know that when you go to the doctor, if you want an HIV test, you must ask. And do not let the doctor shame you. Do not let the doctor be like, well, you don't need that. Why do you need that? That's not for you. Because most doctors who do not practice infectious disease, they're not up to date on HIV and all that. They're just regular doctors, not regular doctors, but they're just doing doctory things.
Right.
So women, I think that's an excellent point. That goes to the sexual empowerment. You ask for the HIV test. It's your right to get it if you ask for it. And if you're questioned about it, just say, it's because I want it. I'm being safe. And it's
my PCP always asks, she always asks if I want it in addition to all my other labs. Every physical, she always asks.
Right.
Because most people would think they got it and they didn't.
Dr. Mel, you have mentioned something earlier about a vaccine, a possible vaccine for HIV.
Yeah, actually, Dr. Morrison actually brought it up first. There's research going on it. There's testing going on, but it has not yet been, the results of the testing have not yet panned out to be able to say, we're presenting this to the FDA for approval. So it's still in development, still in the works, basically.
Right. And if anyone wants information on the current trials going on, they can go to the HIV Vaccine Trials Network, or the HVTN. Just type that in Google and it'll come up. And the HVTN gives you up-to-date information on the current HIV vaccine trials that are existing, the ones they've done in the past, the some they're going to launch in the future. And, when it comes to vaccine trials and HIV vaccine, people must understand that HIV has so many different variants. Like we hear about COVID-19 variants, HIV has so many different strains. It's 7 strains of HIV. So they're trying to figure out, how do we deal with all these different strains, so that I may get a vaccine for strain A and you have strain B and your strain is knocking out whatever I have. So it's complex. HIV is very complex, the medical side of it.
Just think about how many variants we've had of COVID, and it's only been around for 2 years. Right? So
exactly.
Well, Dr. Morrison, you have just been a wealth of information and gone, as Lila said, into a lot of nuance that, I haven't really heard covered other places. So I really salute you and thank you for being here and bringing your wealth of experience to this discussion. Thanks so much. And
thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And as we summarize and wrap up for this week, I just want to remind everybody about the study that I'm participating with Howard University on, in terms of helping recruit. If anybody of the Be Health Empowered family, so that's anybody who listens to this show, wants to be involved, it's a COVID resilience research study. It's 2 surveys. You take it and you're actually compensated for your time that requires that it's required to take those surveys, up to $100. And so if you're interested, please reach out to Dana Harvey, who's our research assistant. Her email is danaharveyresearch@gmail.com. That's Dana, D-A-N-A, Harvey, H-A-R-V-E-Y, research@gmail.com. So thank you so much for tuning in, Be Health Empowered family. You all are fantastic. Thanks for the questions. Thank you so much, Lila and Wayne, as always, for bringing the voice of the people to the conversation. And I'm going to be here. We're going to be here next week with Excuse Me Doctor, bringing you more great topics next week. And until we see each other again, remember, be wise, be well, and be health empowered. Thanks so much for joining us.
My name is Dion Davis. I've tried to live my life with no regrets, but I guess my final regret is not getting vaccinated. Please, don't let not getting vaxxed be your final regret.